If your fine hair looks noticeably flatter by 10 in the morning than it did the moment you finished styling it, the problem is very likely not how much hair you have. It is what you are quietly doing to it without realizing it in the first 60 seconds after you wake up. 6 simple, practical fixes are about to change how your roots look every single day, and the one at the very end is the one most women never think to question, even after years of trying everything else first. One of these 6 is very likely happening in your own bathroom mirror at this exact moment, quietly working against every product you own. Stay with me all the way through, because the order these come in matters more than you think. Before we start, I want you to hear something important because it changes how you listen to the rest of this video. Fine hair is simply not the same thing as thin hair, and it is absolutely not the same thing as hair that is falling out. Fine simply describes the natural width of each individual strand, nothing more. Many women with genuinely fine hair have an enormous number of strands on their head, more than they realize, sometimes more per square inch than women with visibly thicker hair, and the flat, thin appearance they see in the mirror every morning is almost always a styling problem, not a growth problem. None of the 6 fixes coming up require expensive treatments, supplements, or a single trip to a specialist. They require 6 small daily habits, corrected in the right order, and roots that finally get to do what they were always capable of doing. The biggest fix, the one that decides whether every other change on this list actually holds up through the day, is saved for the very last spot. Every section between here and there sets up exactly why that final fix works as well as it does, so do not skip ahead. Think of this less as a list of random tricks and more as a chain, where each link makes the next one work better. Let's start at number 6, your part. Here is a habit almost nobody thinks to question because it feels like the most natural thing in the world. You part your hair in exactly the same place every single day, the same straight line, in the same direction, morning after morning, year after year. That single repeated line puts constant gentle pressure on the same strip of scalp and the same strands along it, and over time that section trains itself to lie flatter than the hair around it, almost like a path worn into grass from being walked on the exact same way every day. The part itself becomes a visible flattened seam running straight down the crown, the exact area where you most want lift. The fix is simple. Move your part slightly, either into a soft diagonal line instead of a straight one, or shift it half an inch to one side every few days so no single strip of scalp carries the same pressure indefinitely, giving each section a real chance to rest and recover its natural lift. This is not about changing your whole look. It is about giving your roots a chance to recover their natural lift in the one spot that gets worn down the fastest. When you try this at home, comb your hair straight back first, then use the end of a comb to trace a soft diagonal line from slightly off-center toward the back of your head, rather than a rigid straight part, taking your time rather than rushing through it the way you might have for years. The mistake to avoid is switching your part every single day, at random, since your hair needs a few days in one direction to settle before you rotate it again. Here is a simple mirror check. Look straight on and see if you can spot a visible flattened line running along your part. If you can, that line has likely been sitting in the exact same place for years, quietly training the hair around it to behave the same tired way every single morning. To maintain it, lightly mist the new part line with a texturizing spray before you comb it into place each morning, which helps the hair hold the new direction instead of falling back into the old groove. If your hair is very fine, keep the diagonal shift subtle, since a dramatic new part can look unnatural on delicate strands. If your hair is thicker but still reads flat, you can shift the part more boldly without it looking forced. And if your hair is gray or silver, a soft diagonal part actually catches light beautifully across the crown, which a straight, flat part rarely does, since the slight angle creates natural shadow and highlight instead of one flat plane. Number 5 is how you brush your hair the moment you step out of the shower, and this is where real, measurable damage is happening to fine hair without most women ever noticing it. Wet hair can stretch far beyond its normal resting length before it snaps, sometimes by as much as half again its original length, and pulling a regular brush straight through soaking wet strands from root to end in one motion is one of the most damaging things you can do to fine hair on a daily basis. Every single pull adds tiny amounts of breakage you cannot see in the moment, but you absolutely see the result later in the form of thinner-looking ends and less overall density along the length of your hair. The fix is switching to a wide tooth comb and changing the direction you detangle in completely, treating every wet strand with far more patience than you probably have been. Start at the very ends, working out the smallest knots first, then move upward toward the roots only once the bottom sections move freely. Never start at the top and drag a brush straight down through a tangle. Even better, do your first pass of detangling while conditioner is still sitting in your hair in the shower, since the conditioner creates slip that dramatically reduces the friction causing the breakage in the first place. Ask your stylist to recommend a wide tooth comb specifically suited to fine hair, since some are actually too coarse and can create as much friction as a brush, undoing the very gentleness you were trying to introduce in the first place. The mistake to avoid is reaching for your regular paddle brush the second you get out of the shower purely out of habit, before your hair has had any chance to release its own tangles gently first. Try this simple test tonight. Look at how much hair collects on your brush after just one styling session. If it is more than a few strands, your detangling method is very likely part of the problem, and a small change tonight can start showing up within a couple of weeks. If your hair is extremely fine, detangle with just your fingers first before ever introducing a comb. If it is fine but dense, section it into 2 or 3 parts and detangle each section separately rather than tackling the whole head at once. And if your hair is gray or silver, it tends to be slightly more porous and prone to tangling, so this gentle detangling order matters even more for you specifically. But the part and the brushing habit are not the biggest culprits on this list. The next one is the mistake I see undoing every other good habit a woman has, and it happens for a full 60 seconds every single morning without her ever realizing it, usually before she has even had her first cup of coffee. Number 4 is the direction you point your blow dryer, and this is where I need to correct something almost every woman has been doing for decades without a second thought. Most of us learn to dry our hair by simply pointing the nozzle straight down at the scalp and letting the airflow smooth everything into place from above. That instinct is backwards, and it might be the single most common reason fine hair looks flat within an hour of finishing a full blowout. Nearly every woman I have ever taught this to had no idea she was doing it, simply because it is the most natural motion in the world, pointing the warm air straight at the wet hair in front of her. When warm air is forced straight down onto wet roots, it physically presses those roots flat against the scalp as they dry, and once fine hair has dried in that flattened position, there is almost no product or trick that will bring the lift back for the rest of the day. The fix is tilting your head forward, so gravity is working with you instead of against you, and directing the airflow up and away from the scalp while you dry the roots first, before you ever touch the ends, no matter how tempting it is to smooth things down right away. If tilting your whole head forward is not comfortable, section your hair instead and lift each section directly away from the scalp with one hand while drying underneath it with the nozzle angled upward with the other. The goal in either case is the same, creating separation and lift at the root before you worry about smoothing anything else. Ask your stylist to show you exactly how they angle the dryer at the roots during your next blowout, and pay close attention, because this single habit does more for daily volume than almost any product you could buy, and it costs absolutely nothing extra to learn. The mistake to avoid is rushing straight to smoothing the ends first because it feels faster, since flat roots cannot be fixed later no matter how perfect the ends look. Here is your mirror check. After your next blow dry, look straight down at your scalp from above in a mirror. If you can see a clear part of separation and lift at the roots, the direction finally worked in your favor, and you will likely feel the difference before you even see it. If your hair is very fine, use the lowest heat and speed setting while lifting at the roots, since fine strands dry quickly and do not need aggressive heat to hold shape. If it is fine but naturally wavy or curly, diffuse it upside down instead of using a direct nozzle, which achieves the same upward lift without disturbing the natural texture. And on gray or silver hair, this upward drying technique also helps the color read brighter and less dull, since flattened roots tend to trap shadow right at the crown where you want the most light, and that trapped shadow is often mistaken for dullness in the color itself. We are past the halfway point of this list now, and the fix that ties everything together, the one that decides whether all of this actually lasts through your whole day, is still ahead of you. Do not stop here, because the next two build directly on everything you just learned about roots, direction, and lift. Number 3 is where you are putting your styling products, and this is where a well-meaning habit quietly works against you every single day. Most women apply their favorite volumizing mousse or root spray the exact same way they apply a rich conditioner, running it evenly through the entire length of the hair from root to end. On fine hair specifically, that even distribution is the problem, because the very weight that gives ends a smooth, polished finish is the same weight that crushes the lift right out of your roots before you have even picked up a hairdryer. If people have started describing your hair as flat rather than fine, that might simply mean your products have been quietly fighting your roots this entire time without you realizing it, applied with the best of intentions but in exactly the wrong place. The fix is a strict separation between what goes where, treated almost like two completely different products even if they happen to come from the same bottle. Lightweight root lifting product goes only at the scalp, applied in small sections directly against the roots, while heavier, richer product is reserved only for the mid-lengths and ends where you actually want extra weight and shine. Ask for a lightweight volumizing spray specifically labeled for root use, and apply it while your hair is freshly washed and still damp, working it in with your fingertips section by section rather than spraying it across the whole head at once, which almost always ends up putting product exactly where you least want it. The mistake to avoid is buying one all-purpose product and using it everywhere on your head the same way, since fine hair genuinely needs two different products doing two very different jobs. Try this simple test. Touch your roots by midday. If they feel coated, heavy, or slightly greasy rather than light and mobile, product placement is very likely part of what is flattening them. If your hair is extremely fine, use noticeably less product than the bottle recommends, since fine strands are coated far more easily than the average person's hair. If it is fine, but you also have some natural body to it, you can be slightly more generous at the roots without weighing things down. And on gray or silver hair, be especially careful with heavier products at the root, since they tend to dull the natural shine that gray hair relies on to look healthy and bright, rather than flat and dull. And that dullness is often blamed on the color itself, rather than the product sitting on top of it. Number 2 is how often and how tightly you are pulling your hair back, and this is one that catches almost every woman by surprise the first time she really thinks about it. A daily low ponytail or a tight bun in the exact same spot, day after day, puts consistent, repeated tension directly along your hairline and at your roots, and fine hair is far more sensitive to that steady pulling than thicker hair ever is. Over months, that quiet, repeated tension trains the hairline to sit flatter and can genuinely soften the fullness right along your part and temples. Exactly the areas most women are already trying hardest to protect, often without connecting the dots back to the elastic they reach for every single morning. The fix is not giving up updos completely, because there is nothing wrong with wearing your hair up when you need to. It is varying the tension and the placement so no single section of scalp carries the same steady pull every single day, week after week, month after month. Choose a looser, lower style more often than a tight, high one, and alternate exactly where the elastic sits from one day to the next instead of using the identical spot every single time. Ask your stylist to show you a soft, loose twist or a gently gathered low style that holds shape without pulling hard at the hairline, so you have an easy option on the days you do want your hair up and out of the way, without paying for it in tension the next morning. The mistake to avoid is assuming a slightly looser style will not stay in place, since a well-placed soft hold often lasts just as long as a tight one without any of the ongoing tension. Here is a simple check. Run your finger along your hairline at the end of the day. If you can feel a slight indentation or tenderness where an elastic sat, that tension has been higher than your fine hair can comfortably handle, even if it never once felt painful in the moment. If your hair is very fine, avoid tight elastics altogether and reach for soft fabric ties instead, which grip far more gently. If it is fine but on the thicker side, you have a little more flexibility with tension, but the same rotation habit still matters. And on gray or silver hair, protecting the hairline matters even more, since regrowth along a stressed hairline can look noticeably different in color and texture from the rest of the head, which draws far more attention than a slightly looser style ever would. But the very last fix on this list does something none of the other 5 can fully accomplish on their own, and it changes how every single one of these habits actually performs for the rest of your day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you finally take your hair down at night. And here it is, the fix that earns the number 1 spot, your haircut shape itself. If I could change only one thing for every woman with fine hair over 60 who asks me for advice, it would be this, without hesitation, because it is the one fix that quietly influences whether all 5 of the others actually hold their shape past midday. Here is why it matters more than anything else on this list. All 5 habits you just learned genuinely help, but they are working with whatever shape your hair was cut into, and a haircut with no internal structure at the crown will fight against even perfect styling every single day. The fix is asking specifically for a cut with internal layering concentrated at the crown, hidden underneath a smooth outer line, so the visible shape stays polished while the internal layers do the actual work of propping the hair up from underneath. This is not the same as an all-over layered cut, which can actually make fine hair look thinner by removing too much weight evenly across the whole head, leaving the ends wispy instead of full. It is a precise, targeted structure built specifically where lift matters most and left completely alone everywhere else. Ask your stylist for internal layers cut only through the crown and upper sections, with the outer perimeter left blunt and weighted so you get lift on the inside and a clean, smooth line on the outside at the same time, which is exactly the combination fine hair needs most. The mistake to avoid is asking for layers without being specific about where, since a stylist who hears the word layers often assumes you want them evenly throughout, which is the opposite of what fine hair actually needs, and can leave you with even less visible density than when you walked in. Here is your mirror check. Section off the very top of your hair and look underneath it carefully. If you see one uniform length with no shorter layers hidden beneath the surface, there is nothing currently propping your crown up from the inside. To style it after your next cut, apply your root lifting product exactly as we covered earlier. Dry your roots pointing the airflow upward exactly as we covered earlier, and then simply let the internal layers do the rest of the work for you. If your hair is extremely fine, ask for slightly shorter internal layers, since shorter pieces create more lift with less overall weight sitting on top of them, and less weight is exactly what fine hair needs to stand up on its own. If it is fine but a bit denser, slightly longer internal layers still create noticeable lift without looking choppy, giving you the best of both a smooth outer line and real movement underneath. And on gray or silver hair, this internal layering is especially effective because it lets your natural color and texture read as full and dimensional instead of flat and one-dimensional across the crown. Here is what I hope you take away from all 6 of these. Your fine hair was never working against you. It was simply being asked to do its best work under conditions that made lift almost impossible from the very first minute of your morning. Change the part, change the brush, change the direction of the dryer, change where the product goes, change the tension at your hairline, and finally, change the hidden structure underneath the cut itself, and roots that have felt permanently flat for years can genuinely look fuller within days, not months, without a single new product added to your routine. So take a slow breath. Think back through these 6 fixes one more time, from the part all the way to the hidden structure underneath the cut, and be honest with yourself about which one you are already doing wrong this very morning. Which of these 6 will you try first tomorrow?